about all of these like periods. They're very interesting, like periods of history. So, and then after Ezra, we had Shimon HaTzadik. And then after that, we had Antigonus Ish Sochoi Uvestinoi. So it's another name of a Torah scholar that he received from Shimon HaTzadik. Okay, and Vestinoi, all of them, like all the Torah scholars we named before. ויוסף בן יועזר איש תרדה ויוסף בן יוחנן איש ירושלים ובית דינם קיבלו מאנטיגנוס ובית דינם וישוע בן פרחיה וניסי ארבלי ובית דינם קיבלו מיוסף ויוסף ובית דינם. So Yosef is a name, it's not Joseph that I mentioned in the Torah. It's a late to say name Yosef, right? He had a congregation. He was down generation from Antigonus and his generations. So, and then we have another sage named Yehuda ben Tovai. So, Yehuda ben Tovai was like another sage. Shimon ben Shattach. So, we have Shimon ben Shattach of Dinam, like another couple of sages. They received the oral tradition. Kiblu mi Yeshua v'Nita uveis Dinam. Yeshua and Nita Arbeli, which we named before, we mentioned them, and their congregation. So, as you see, the oral tradition goes down, the history, and it was handed generation to generation up till today. Shmaya and Avtalion, both of them, they were Geret Tzedek. The Geret Tzedek means someone that initially was not Jewish from the descendants of like Yaakov Avinu. They're from other nations, and they joined Am Israel, the nation of Israel, down the track. So someone that is like enlightened by the Jewish people, or has got a soul that was actually influenced by Jewish spiritual forces from Hashem. And usually those neshamas, those souls, are meant to convert eventually. So Judaism is not a religion that converts people. We don't have like missionaries. We don't convert people. We just, most of the people that come to us and they say, oh, I want to become Jewish, we tell them you could be a Ben Noach. Ben Noach is someone that is a descendant of Noach and is not obligated by all the mitzvahs, all the Jewish law. And they have only 7 mitzvahs, 7 high laws of Noach. And those were given to Noah. Maybe down for the lessons, we'll learn about them a bit deeply. Maybe for someone who's interested to teach it to their neighbors and other things like that they want to, explain them about the high laws of Noah. So it's a very important thing, very important part of the tradition is the high laws of Noah, because Judaism respects and accepts everybody, all the nations. All the nations are like the light to the nations. So we're supposed to be light to the nations. We, Chas v'Sholom, God forbid, we're not hating anybody. We don't dislike anybody. All the people, we like all Hashem creation, all God's creatures. We love them because they're God's creatures. So we're going to learn about that when we get to the text, the holy text of the Jewish law. So that's mainly the hashkafa. So if someone would want to learn that farther down, we'll probably make a limud, a lesson about that, and we'll teach about the high laws of Noah. So those are for the Shema and Naftalion, that they were 2 Geret Tzedek, the converters, like they convert to Judaism, and they become Jewish. And not only did they became Jewish, they became the highest level of Torah scholars in their generation. So their names were Shmaya and Avtalion. All right? And they received from Yehuda, Shimon, Uvestinom. So they received from Yehuda and Shimon, we mentioned before, and their Pestin, which is their congregation. V'Hillel v'Shammai, name of 2 sages, main sages, the entire Talmud full of Hillel and Shammai's, Memrot, which are their like exact boards of teaching that they receive in tradition. We'll run into him many times. So they receive from Shmaya Avtalion and that the best in the congregation. Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai, he was the on the lining of the presidents, not presidents like a state president or something like that, in the Torah it was a Nasi. So it's a title. It's called a Nasi, the greatest like scholar of the generation, called a Nasi. And most of the time we had like a partner that it was like his learning partner. And most of the time they were off based in. They were standing in the high court, like the high Jewish court, as off based in. So the Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai and Rabban Shimon ben Noshel Hillel. So Hillel had a son, and his name was Rabban Shimon. וקיבלו מהלל ובייס דינו. They received the tradition from Hillel and his congregation, his bais din. חמישה תלמידים היו לרבן יוחנן בן זכאי. So 5 students, 5 disciples, the Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai had. והם גדולי החכמים שקיבלו ממנו. They were the greatest sages, the greatest scholars they received from him. ואלו הם, and these are their names. Rabbi Eliezer HaGodol. So Rabbi Eliezer HaGodol was the full name was Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkanus. We're going to run into him in the Mishnah, the part of the Talmud. We're going to learn about the Tzuras Hadaf, the shape of the Talmudic page. We'll be able to learn what part is the Mishnah, what part is the Talmud, which is later on, which is the extension, or you could say the interpretation, or the more dealing with parts of the Mishnah that explains and extract things that are hidden in the Mishnah. So that's the Talmud. So we're going to run into Rabbi Eliezer HaGodol. Remember that name. Every time we're going to say Rabbi Eliezer HaGodol, it's Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkanus. Horkanus, his father, was a very rich man, and he started to learn in a later age of 28. Some say 22. And he started his Torah life on 28, Before that, he didn't know Torah, and he became the greatest sage of the generation, of his generation. He was a Talmud of Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai. So, which we said, he was a president. All right? So, Rabbi Yeshua, also a great Torah scholar, was one of the 5 students that Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai had. Rabbi Yosef HaKohen was a Rabbi Yosef. He was also a Kohen, a priest. So not like he was not a high priest, but he was a priest. Rabbi Shimon ben Netanel. Rabbi Shimon ben Netanel is another name of a sage. Was from the Talmudim, the students, the disciples of Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai. Rabbi Elazar ben Arach. Rabbi Akiva ben Yosef. So now we start a new one. As we mentioned before. Now we spoke about the 5 scholars, the disciples of Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai. Now, farther down, next generation, we're going to speak about the main one, which all the entire oral tradition were given through him, and it was Rabbi Akiva. So Rabbi Akiva was the greatest scholars of his generation. He was amazing. He had 24,000 students that something very unpleasant happened to them. And maybe when we get to the sugya, we're going to deal with that a bit in deeper details. All right, so Rabbi Akiva ben Yosef. So Rabbi Akiva was a ben Gerim. We heard before about the Ger Tzedek. So Rabbi Akiva's father was also a Ger Tzedek. His mother was cooking for Kalbus Avua, was one of the richest people of the generation. She was working there. And he started to learn Torah in a very late age. They learned Torah in the age of 40. So before that, he didn't know any Torah, and he started to learn Torah. So never is late. So he started in a very late age. So is his teacher, his rabbi, Rabbi Eliezer HaGodol, as we mentioned before. So people can start in a very late age and still be highest scholars of their generations. Okay? Kibul Rabbi Eliezer HaGodol, that's Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkanus that we mentioned before. Yosef Avi Ger Tzedek Haya, his father Yosef was a Ger Tzedek. Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Meir ben Ger HaTzedek. So Rabbi Meir also was a son of a Ger Tzedek. Kiblu Rabbi Akiva, they received from Rabbi Akiva. וגם קיבל רבי מאיר וחברו מרבי ישמעאל. So Rabbi Meir also he received the old tradition from Rabbi Akiva, and also from Rabbi Ishmael. So Ishmael, as that name rings a bell. Rabbi Ishmael is named after Ishmael, which was a Kohen Gadol. And Ishmael, like the end of his days, he was the son of Abraham, and he made tshuva. And then basically that name is very acceptable to be named like names of sages. All right. So Ishmael is a very good name, and the proof of that we have sages named Rabbi Ishmael. All right. Chavirav shel Rabbi Meir. So Rabbi Meir now starts to become like more of a students slash friends. Chavirav shel Rabbi Meirem, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Shimon. That's Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, which like buried in Meron. Rabbi Nehemiah, Rabbi Eluz ben Shamo, Rabbi Yechanan HaSandler, Shimon ben Azai, Rabbi Hananya ben Teradian. So the Rabbi Hananya was a son of Teradian. We're going to run into him when we're going to learn about like the parts of the Mishnah of the Talmud, also part of the oral tradition. You will run into it when we start actually running into the texts like of the Talmud. So some of them, of the friends, they received from Rabbi Eliezer HaGadol directly, which was his teacher, his rabbi, his Muvak rabbi, Rabbi Eliezer HaGadol. So the friends of Rabbi Akiva, הם Rabbi Tarfon, Rabbi Yossi HaGlili, Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar. So the son of Rabbi Shimon, like Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar, Elazar was like a son of Rabbi Shimon, had a son, Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar. Rabbi Yochanan ben Uri. All right, so the Rabbi Yochanan ben Uri. Then we're going down more. Rabban Gamliel Zaken. So we see the name Rabban. Rings a bell? That's a name of a Nasi, a president, like a Torah president, a scholar, like the highest type of position for a Torah scholar is a Nasi. All right. So Rabban Gamliel Zaken, the elder Rabban Gamliel, that was his name. Kibel me Rabban Shimon Aviv. He received from, as we said, the lining of the presidency, the Nisius, went down from Hillel down to his descendants, and usually it goes like father, like son of the father, unless it's like an exception, part of some time, like times of history, it was not like that. So Rabban Shimon Aviv Benoy Shel Hillel. So there they had a son named Hillel. Rabban Shimon Kibel Mimeno. All right. So Rabban Shimon received from him. Rabban Gamliel Benoy Kibel Mimeno, and their son Rabban Gamliel the son, now junior. All right. Rabban Gamliel the son received from him. And then Rabban Shimon Benoy also had the name of, like usually in Jewish tradition, it's very common to name your son after either your father, it depends if it's Ashkenazi or Sephardi, name of the father, or the grandfather. So it's depend on few factors about the tradition. Some people, they name their sons or like daughters on like over the name of their mothers or grandmothers, and the sons over the name of their fathers and grandfathers. So usually some of them, they do it only after they pass away, and some of them, they do it in their life. Okay, so when the person is still alive. And then we run into a factor that we see that the name Rabban Shimon and Rabban Gamliel repeats itself. All right. So Rabbeinu HaKadosh, so Rabbeinu HaKadosh, Chibur HaMishnah. So the Mishnah is the main chibur, is the main book. We're gonna speak about it a bit. We're gonna like stop here and speak about the Mishnah a little bit. The Mishnah is the collection of the entire Jewish oral tradition that they were very important. They were, we said before, mentioned about the oral tradition and the written tradition. So dvarim sheba'al peh ein charasha lichtoam malalut al malaktav. So you're not allowed to bring something in writing from the oral tradition. So how come he wrote the Mishnah? So he saw that the generation becomes like they become weaker and weaker. And then he had to do something to maintain the oral law, because people were starting like there was like the downscending of the generations, and the people become less and less smart and wise, and they had lots of troubles from many things in history, events in history that happened that they could not learn properly. So he had to do something very unique, very like an exception, that he had to write down the oral tradition in a very brief manner. So it means that we have Shisha Siddur Mishnah, so 6 parts of the Mishnah, and the acronym for them is Man Nakat. So they're divided to 6 volumes. One volume is like Seder Zraim, speaks about the brachot, blessings, all the Jewish law regarding blessings, regarding agriculture, and all the mitzvahs, all the Jewish commandments that relate to agriculture, to poor people, etc. And then we have like the second one is the Moed, which speaks about Hilchot Shabbat and Hilchot Moadim. We have like Pesach, Shabbat, and all the festivals and high holidays of the Jewish people. So all of that he puts in like all the halachas. All the halachas, when we're going to say halacha, means Jewish law, or in particular detail of Jewish law. So basically the second one was Seder Moed, and then we have the Nun or the Zman Nakat, which will be like we have said, two Nun. We have Nezikin and Nashim. Nezikin speaks about all the damages as one friend does to the other, all the things that are related to money, funds, inheritance, and things that are like if someone is damaging someone else, if they need to pay, like the actual ancient law. Like what today is like law is taken all the motives and idea from the ancient Jewish law for all types of nations. Comes up from a very, like they had like a Zarathustra, which was like also an ancient law that went down the track, was around the same time of that ancient tradition, ancient, you can say they called the High Court of Law, the ancient High Court of Law. So basically, so we have Nashim, which is women, which speaks everything about the Jewish laws and mitzvahs regarding women, how to get married, how to get divorced, what happens in particular situation when someone dies and like they have like a brother and they don't have children, and the brother needs to take as a wife the like the deceased wife, to marry her and like bring his brother back to life. We're going to speak about it a bit later. All right, so that's Nashim and Nezikim, and then Kufis Kodshin, Seder Kodshin, speaks about the sacrifices, korbanos, all types of worship in the high temple that was in Jerusalem. And then the last one will be Tes, which is Zman, like we said, Zman Nakat. Tes will be Taharas, speaks about purity, impurity, and vessels. When do they get purity? Like a spiritual purity, and like today it's not very common because we don't have it these days. But still, some remainings are left from that. Like for example, Kohanim. They cannot get closer to a dead person, which considers Avi Avot Tuma. When we're going to learn about like Tuma, probably when we're going to speak about Masechet Psochim, Rabbi Chanan Sgan Kohanim, we're going to speak about this subject. So it's a very interesting, very, very thorough subject. It's very big. It's very intensive. You need a very strong mind or brain to be able to cope all of that. It's very smart. It's very intelligent. All right, so those are the Shisha Siddur Mishnah. So Shisha Siddur Mishnah, the 6 volumes of the Mishnah, and that's all of that was written by Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, that he brought it and collected all the collectively, and all of our Jewish law are based on that Mishnah. All right. So Mimas Moshe Rabbeinu v'ad Rabbeinu HaKodesh lo chibru chibur shemelamdim mois barabim b'torah sheba'al peh. So Rambam explains that from the time of Moshe Rabbeinu until the time of Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, which called like his title is Rabbeinu HaKadosh, and he was the mechaber of the Mishnah. He was conducting and writing all together, bringing all together all the halachas and writing the Mishnah. And from that time of Moshe Rabbeinu up to the time of Rabbeinu HaKadosh, they didn't have like the oral tradition in writing, but they did have it like personally. What he says here, that they didn't have it in writing, some people that they wrote for themselves some things, some details, something that they learned from the rabbis, but they didn't teach it like in public. So they didn't teach it in public, so it's very different. This is the only unique chibur that was suitable to teach in public, and he had special permission from heavens to write it down. Ela b'chol dor vador, in each generation, Rosh Besin on Navi, Shaba Ador. So the like the Av Beis Din we spoke before, or the Navi, the prophet, he writes for himself whatever he heard from, like whatever tradition or tradition he heard from his rabbi. Shisham Rabboisav, v'hu melamed al pei berabim. Each one like individual writes for himself as like he can, like his ability to write down, to comprehend. So from the explanation of the Torah and the halacha, the Jewish laws, for like the same way he heard it. So from each things like they were like renewing in each generation, like each generation needs to adjust and adapt to the current things. Like for example, today we have microwave. Back then they didn't have. So today we have fridges. Well, what are the halachas in regard to fridges? Well, how do we know that? So we have basic sets of rules, and we learn from that basic sets of rules everything. They are like from them you could learn about current thing, current situation, current currencies, and other things that were in exist back then. All right. So things that are lolim du me pi hashmua. Pi hashmua means from Kodesh Baruch Hu, from God, that were given to like Moshe Rabbeinu. Ela b'midah mishlosh midah. There are 13 midot, like basic sets of rules as we spoke before. We have 32 rules that are yuchasu Rabbi Yosef Glili. There are another 32 sets of rules, like basic rules to learn the Torah, but they're much deeper, for deeper layers of Torah. But like most of the Talmud is dealing with 13 basic rules, which are 13 midot, well, midas of the Torah, how to nidresh it, how to darshan the psukim. And that was received from Rabbi Shmuel. Usually we read it in the morning in the davening before starting the prayer, the morning service. All right, so for the day on, we're going to probably make this becomes a very long session. So we're going to pause here, and we're going to proceed it in the next session we're going to have. So we got all the way from Moshe Rabbeinu that received from God to Rabbeinu HaKadosh. That was like he wrote the entire Mishnah, the 6 volumes of the Mishnah, the 6 Dori Mishnah. So that's all for today. Don't forget to subscribe, and don't forget to click the notification bell so you will be able to know when I'm releasing a new video. And that's about all for today. You should all be blessed, and we're going to see you next time. Thank you very much.